All right, here we're looking at our notebook for section 6.5, and we always start with our learning targets. So you can see right here, I can use the properties of logarithms to evaluate, expand, or condense expressions. And then I can use the change of base formula to evaluate logarithms. And we really need to know the change of base formula because our calculators don't just automatically have all of the different bases. So we have to be able to know actually how to put them into our calculator to solve them. So you are going to need today, we're going to start by looking at the properties of logarithms. Okay, so here's the sheet that you're going to need, and we're going to start by looking at the product property. The product property tells me that if I have log of two things that are multiplied together, that's the same thing as if I took the log of each and added them together. So one thing I want you to remember is this equal sign does not mean we have to go from this direction over here. This means we can also know if I'm adding some things together that have the same base, I can then turn them into a single log and multiply them. Okay, so now the quotient property is very similar to that. So if I have the log of two different things being divided, I can subtract them individually. Or if I start with them over on this side, two different things being subtracted with the same base, I can turn it into one equation and one expression. That's our quotient property. Then the third property that we have is the power property. So if I have the log of something and I have that exponent, the way I deal with that exponent is I pull it out front and I multiply it times everything else. Okay? So now let's look at how we can use these three properties kind of all together in different orders to kind of both expand and simplify. So here I'm told to expand this natural log, and even though this is not what we saw in our properties, we just had log, this is just our log base 10, remember, one of our common logs, and this is just another common one. This is just with a base e, we just write it as natural log. We follow the same rules no matter what type of log, what base it is. So here I'm expanding the natural log of 5x to the 7th divided by y. And this will come in handy if I'm trying to find one of my variables or just kind of break it down. So the first step is I see I'm dividing, so I use my quotient property to then separate those into subtraction. So I take everything that was in the numerator, take the natural log of that, and subtract everything that was in the denominator. Well, now I see I have another step because I'm multiplying some things together. So I can use my product property to break those apart into addition. I'm not quite done because I see I have something with an exponent. So to deal with that, I have to use my power property and pull that exponent out front. So to expand this piece right here, I end up with a natural log of 5 plus 7 times the natural log of x minus the natural log of y. So using all three of my properties together, I was able to kind of expand it. So the other thing I can do is I can condense. I can go from the big thing to the little thing. So that's what we're going to be doing here in this example. So I have here, I'm just using my common log because I don't have a base, so I'm assuming that it's a 10. So I've got log of 9 plus 3 log of 2 minus log of 3. So I want to condense that and make it smaller. So the first thing I notice is I want to get rid of this thing in front. So I use my power property to turn it into an exponent. Well, then I see I'm adding a couple of things, so I can turn that into multiplication using my product property. Well, now all that's left is subtraction, and again, these all have the same base, so I can do this. So then I turn this into I use my quotient property to kind of simplify. Oh, well, now I just have log base 10 of some numbers that are together, and I can go ahead and simplify that because 9 times 2 cubed divided by 3 will give me just log base 10 of 24. So I was able to go from this long kind of multiple step process just down to this log of 24. So that's kind of how we can use our different properties to help us. Where you'll really see this kind of in one thing in your homework is evaluating. So you'll be told something like the natural log of 5 is this, and the natural log of 3 is this, and the natural log of 2 is this. But you'll be given something big like this, and we don't know how to plug those in or evaluate from there. So I can go ahead and separate everything out and then plug in the things that I know. So for instance, if they told me in the original equation that the natural log of 5 is 2 point something, and the natural log of x is 3, and the natural log of y is 6.5, well, I can't plug those into my original equation or my original expression. I have to separate them out and expand them. Oh, now I have a natural log of 5. I can replace that. I can substitute for that. Oh, I have the natural log of x. I can substitute for that one too. And here's something else I can substitute for. So you'll see that in your homework quite a bit. The last thing that we really have to learn in this section is the change of base formula. And here your colors are going to be important. We're going to use different colors. Okay, and this is just where we're going to be writing in our notebook. Okay, so here's the change of base formula. So I've got log base b of a. So you can't just put this in your calculator because our calculators really only live in base 10. So we need to be able to get it to base 10. So in order to do that, I take the log, and we just call it z here, but this is going to generally be our base 10 so we can use our calculator. So in your calculator you would just type log of a divided by log of b. So how we can remember which one goes on the top is in this original expression the a is written slightly above the b, right? So you see how the base is down and the a is up a little bit? So the a goes on top. That's just going to be your easier way to remember your change of base formula so you know which one goes in your calculator first and which one you're dividing by. Okay, so that's it for our properties and our change of base. So now you're going to be using these things, and don't forget you're going back and forth in this, not just one direction. That's why we use equal signs, because it goes both directions. And actually simplifying and evaluating and expanding and collapsing, doing some of the things that we practiced in here. So make sure that you keep this with you and that you have everything that you need now that you're going to start working on this homework. And as always, get in touch with me whenever you get stuck.